Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for one of the most critical transitions in literary history.
A moment so dangerous it actually requires divine intervention.
Exactly. We're talking about Canto 9 of Dante's Inferno. We are leaving the upper half of hell, all those circles of uncontrolled passion.
Right.
And now we're standing right outside the gates of the city of Dis.
And this is the definitive moment of transformation for the pilgrim. If the circles we've seen so far dealt with sins of, incontinence.
Where passions just ran away from the sinner, like lust or gluttony.
Precisely. Well, Canto 9 throws us headlong into the realm of active malice. This is where the intellect, the will, it's all deliberately used to commit sin.
So the stakes are profoundly higher now, both morally and, well, physically. The city of Dis acts as this huge fortified division.
And it's explicitly built to keep people out.
All right, so our mission today is to unpack the harrowing drama of this approach, understand the symbolic confrontation that defines the entrance, and figure out why this transition demanded such extreme measures just to get the door open.
And we begin right in the thick of that drama with Virgil, our unflappable guide.
The guy who knows everything.
And suddenly he just loses his composure. The text shows his face changing color. Dante notices the hue which cowardice brought out, and then it instantly shifts to a new color, maybe to cover it up.
You can just feel that tension. He stops, he's leaning in, attentive, like a man who listens.
It's so quiet, and Virgil starts with this required bravado, still it behooveth us to win the fight.
But then that confidence just it cracks. We get that dreaded hurried out, and then this rushed, whispered hope. Oh, how I long that someone here arrive.
That's the sound of pure desperation, and Dante, who's already terrified, he catches it instantly.
Of course he does.
He says Virgil's words were quite different from the first, and he's worried he interpreted that broken phrase to mean something even worse than Virgil intended.
He's basically saying success is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not without some kind of unexpected help.
Yeah. And this vulnerability, it prompts a really fascinating question from Dante. He asks, a very practical thing. Do any spirits ever travel this deep?
Right, into this bottom of the doleful conch from limbo.
From limbo, exactly. He points out their only pain is having hope cut off. So they aren't being physically tortured. They shouldn't be traveling around.
It's a fair question.
And Virgil confirms it seldom. But
No.
This is where he has to validate his authority. And the backstory he provides is just... it's incredible.
He's been here before.
He's been here before specifically because he was conjured by that pitiless Eryctho.
Okay, let's unpack Eryctho for a second, because this detail is so critical.
It's everything.
She wasn't some minor figure. She was a Thessalian sorceress from Lucan's Pharsalia, famous for gruesome necromancy.
She could raise bodies and spirits just to gain knowledge.
So Virgil wasn't sent here by God or by Beatrice.
No. He was summoned by black magic. And that, ironically, is what gives him the specific technical expertise he needs to be Dante's guide.
And the task she gave him confirms how deep his knowledge of hell really is.
It does. He had to enter the wall of Dis to bring a spirit back from the circle of Judas.
The lowest region. The darkest.
The absolute final circle of hell. So this validates his whole journey. It backed up his claim. Well, know I the way, therefore be reassured.
His knowledge is validated, sure, but the path is still blocked.
Oh, completely blocked. He points to the immediate physical challenge. This fen, the stagnant waters of the Styx, which a prodigious stench exhales.
And this foul air, it just encompasses the whole city dolent, the sorrowful city. He says they cannot enter without anger from the powers inside.
The resistance starts with physical disgust and just builds to the spiritual hostility.
But the stench is just the curtain raiser, isn't it? Their attention gets drawn sharply upward.
To that high tower with the red flaming summit. And as they're watching, the terror just materializes.
Yeah, the scene shifts immediately into this mythological nightmare.
Suddenly, right there on the tower, the three infernal Furies, the fierce Erinyes,
Megara, Alecto, and Tisiphone.
the terrifying embodiments of eternal vengeance.
And Dante does not hold back on the description.
Not at all. They are stained with blood with the limbs of women, but wrapped around them are the greenest hydras and their hair.
It's made of small serpents and cerastes.
A cerastes is a horned viper, so you have this image of women whose heads are just crowned with writhing, venomous snakes.
And they're tearing at their own bodies, shrieking so loud that Dante just presses himself close to Virgil, trembling.
And their threat is laser-focused on the living pilgrim, on Dante.
They spot him immediately.
Yeah.
and they scream for their ultimate weapon. Medusa comes, so we to stone will change him.
They're threatening spiritual obliteration, not just death.
And they connect this threat to an old grudge, right?
Yeah.
They're angry. They avenge we not on Theseus his assault.
Yeah, a reference to Theseus trying to kidnap Proserpine from the underworld. They're basically asserting their ancient right to final, eternal retribution.
This is the absolute peak of peril. And Virgil doesn't fight, he doesn't argue, he just reacts.
Purely to prevent catastrophe, he shouts, "Turn thyself round and keep thine eyes closed shut."
And then, for if the Gorgon appear, and thou shouldst see it, no more returning upward would there be.
And he doesn't just tell him. He physically turns Dante around and covers his eyes with his own hands.
He doesn't trust Dante's resolve.
He can't. This is the most telling action in the whole canto. It's not enough to just trust Dante to look away. Virgil has to enforce this blindness because the threat isn't physical death.
It's the death of the soul's capacity for truth.
Exactly.
And this brings us to that famous moment where Dante the poet steps out of the story and talks to us, the reader, directly.
Yeah.
Right after Virgil's frantic action, he says, "O ye who have undistempered intellects, observe the doctrine that conceals itself beneath the veil of the mysterious verses."
That is a neon sign. I mean, it is demanding our attention. It tells us this isn't just some fun monster moment.
No, it's the central theological puzzle of the entire passage. So,
Yeah.
What is a hidden doctrine?
The poem itself suggests that the Gorgon's head, that power of petrification, is the physical representation of negation or unbelief.
The active, conscious denial of God and divine truth.
And that is just crucial for understanding this entire transition. If the heart is turned to stone by disbelief, well, it becomes fixed, immovable, incapable of feeling or changing.
There truly is no more returning upward. It's spiritual petrification.
The Furies, who represent unending vengeance, are using unbelief as their ultimate weapon against the mind and the soul.
Wait, that really lands heavy. If active malice is the sin here, then it makes perfect sense that the ultimate weapon guarding the entrance is the intellectual sin of negation.
Right.
You can survive uncontrolled passion, but once your intellect is fully fixed in denial, grace becomes impossible.
Not without some kind of external force. It requires literally turning away from the sight of that denial.
Precisely. And because the threat is so absolute and internal, you can't fight unbelief with a sword. It requires an equally absolute, external, and effortless intervention.
Divine grace.
And thankfully, help arrives with shocking theatricality.
It's not a soft light, is it? It's a monstrous sound, a clangor of a sound with terror fraught.
The force of it causes the margins of the stagnant, turbid waves to tremble.
And the simile Dante uses for this sound is just magnificent. He compares it to a windstorm from adverse heats, a sudden impetuous blast that rips through a forest.
Loaded with dust, debris, scattering beasts and shepherds.
It's an elemental force. It's absolute chaos brought against the fixed infernal order.
And this powerful wind, it signals the arrival of the heavenly messenger.
Through all that smoky, foul air, they see him, and his passage just reinforces his divine status. He crosses the Styx with souls unwet.
Doesn't even disturb the surface of the putrid water.
He just waves his left hand to clear the unctuous air, that heavy, sticky air of the Styx, and he seems weary only with that anguish.
Not weary from the journey.
No, weary from the sheer, soul-crushing despair that is hell.
Virgil sees this authority immediately. He signs for Dante to be quiet and bow down.
And the messenger, meanwhile, he just looks completely disdainful. He doesn't even acknowledge the Furies or the damned. He's just there to execute a command.
He reaches the gate, and with what the poem calls a little rod, a symbol of effortless authority.
He opens it, and here's the key word. There is no resistance.
None. The fortress designed to withstand everything just collapses.
Instantly, under the slightest touch of grace.
But he doesn't just leave after opening the gate. He delivers this stinging, scornful rebuke to the damned.
Oh, he does. He calls them, "Oh, banished out of heaven, people despised."
This is a classic divine scorn. He demands to know why they have this arrogance, why they recalcitrate against that will, from which the end can never be cut off.
Why fight a destiny that's already been ordained by God?
And he uses that brilliant mythological tie-in to remind them of their impotence. He brings up their past defeat when Hercules came for Cerberus.
Right, he points out their old guard dog still bears his chin and gullet peeled. That defeat is etched into the very memory of hell.
The force of his appearance, his words, it's all absolute. He's achieved his goal.
And then he's gone. He immediately returns along the miry road, ignoring Dante and Virgil completely because he is constrained by other care. His work here was just a detour.
And the result for our travelers? They enter the city without any contest.
The confrontation that nearly cost Dante his soul is resolved in a flash. It just underscores that human reason, Virgil, sometimes hits a spiritual wall that only God can dismantle.
So after this spectacular, terrifying standoff, they step inside the city of Dis. And now that they're in the fortress of active malice, what's the new landscape of sin?
It's a completely transformed environment. They look around and find an ample plain full of distress and torment terrible.
This isn't the chaotic mud or wind of the upper circle.
No, this is fixed architectural suffering. The entire plain is covered in sepulchres, these ancient tombs that make the ground uneven.
And the poet grounds this image by comparing it to two very specific real-world burial grounds.
Yes. The first is Arles in France, which was famously linked to the burial of Charlemagne's peers, a place of Christian heroic death.
And the second is Pola, near the Cornaro Gulf in Istria, known for its many tombs of various forms.
So, ancient pre-Christian, possibly pagan burial sites.
The use of those two locations is so significant. It shows that this fortress of intellectual sin, it spans all of human history and tradition.
But the source material immediately states that the torment here is more bitter than any earthly example.
And the mechanism is fire. Flames are scattered between the sepulchres, heating them so intensely that iron more so asks not any art.
They're hotter than any earthly forge.
And the coverings uplifted were, from these open tombs, the inhabitants are issuing dire laments.
So Dante, naturally, he asks who is confined inside these eternal fiery graves.
And Virgil gives the defining answer for this whole circle. Here are the heresiarchs with their disciples of all sects.
Heresy. This is the eternal fortress for those who actively denied or codified or preached false doctrine that went against fundamental truths of the faith.
We're talking about leaders of sects like the Epicureans, who denied the immortality of the soul.
Or other Gnostic groups. These are people who actively chose intellectual negation.
And the principle of their eternal burial is spelled out right away, which tells us so much about the justice in this region.
It does. Here, together with its, is buried, and more and less the monuments are heated.
So they're grouped by their specific negation, the type of error they led.
And the severity of the fire reflects the exact gravity of that intellectual error. It's organized, fixed, eternal punishment.
And that's the journey of Canto 9. We went from Virgil's very human fear through a mythological confrontation that required them to turn away from the ultimate spiritual threat.
Which is negation.
And into the city of Dis, where intellectual opposition is eternally punished in these flaming tombs.
The entire canto really does pivot on that confrontation with the Furies and the explicit instruction to avoid the sight of Medusa.
The fact that the only salvation from unbelief wasn't strength, but simply turning away and accepting effortless external grace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the profound takeaway.
It establishes intellectual denial as a spiritual condition so fatal that it demands the most drastic kind of external help to avoid, petrification.
It also underscores that malice, the deliberate turning of the will against truth, is punished architecturally. The structure of Dis, its walls, its heat, its tombs, it all reflects the fixed, rigid nature of the sins inside.
There's no chaos here. Just eternal, organized denial.
And we end with that critical detail about the heresiarchs in those flaming tombs. More and less the monuments are heated, while like together with his like is buried.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider, building on the source material we've explored today.
If heresy is the sin, and the degree of heat corresponds to the severity of that error, what unspoken factor beyond just the sect itself do you think determines the precise temperature of eternal torment?
Is it, say, the number of followers who were lost because of the heresy? Or is the heresiarch who created the denial inherently more culpable and therefore hotter than the disciple who merely followed that denial?
It's a fiery calculation of spiritual responsibility. We'll leave you to mull over that chilling difference between leading an error and just adhering to it. Until next time, keep digging deeper.